Okay, the final video on statutory interpretation just deals with a few things. So first of all, intrinsic aids. What are these things? Just remember inside, internal. So extrinsic aids are aids that help judges interpret words. They are contained inside the Act of Parliament itself. So examples are the long and short title of an act. So an Act of Parliament often has a short title, and then when you look inside the statute or on the next page, it contains a much longer title, and that should help you find out what the Act is all about. There's also what we call preamble that sets out the aim of the Act. So this is a kind of introductory bit at the beginning of an Act. So it might say, this Act of Parliament is intended to. So that's an intrinsic aid. So just remember, you're trying to find out the meaning of words, the purpose of the Act, by actually clues in the Act itself. Examples are the Theft Act, 1968. Section 4 actually is property, and in section 4, when you look at section 4, it doesn't just say property, it actually gives examples of property. With burglary, section 9(3) helps define a building. You might think, well, a building's a building. That's easy. I understand what that means. Well, they've tried to help judges and lawyers, and they've said, well, a building includes an inhabited vehicle or a vessel. So there are definitions inside the Acts of Parliament themselves. The Murder Act has the Murder Abolition of Death Penalty Act, I should have said, 1965, has a preamble. So just reading this to you, it says, this is an act to abolish capital punishment in the case of persons convicted in Great Britain of murder. So it's actually telling you what the purpose of the act is. So those are intrinsic aids. The other type of aids for judges, and they use these particularly in the purposive approach, are extrinsic. So X-E-X, external aids. They are outside the Act and they help judges interpret the meaning of the Act of Parliament. So the first one, easy to remember, dictionaries. We talked about dictionaries with the literal rule and the golden rule. This is an extrinsic aid. It helps judges find the meaning of the word. Another example are the green and white papers. So these are the consultation stages, remember, before a bill is introduced. So hopefully they may show Parliament's intention. They give you a good background to why the Act was introduced. Law Commission reports. The Law Commission looks at reforming the law. They write out all the problems in the law. They're great if ever you have to write a big essay at university, because they set out problems in the law. They set out gaps in the law. They put in their suggestions about areas needing reform. So they're very, very useful for finding out Parliament's intention. The Human Rights Act. The other thing is that English law must take into account the European Convention on Human Rights. So this is nothing to do with the EU and Europe. We are part of the European Convention of Human Rights, and that has an impact. So the Human Rights Act 1998 says that the UK law must be interpreted in a way that is compatible with all those rights, like the right to life, the right to a fair trial, and things like that. The other big example of an extrinsic aid is Hansard. So Hansard are the official reports from Parliament's debates. So remember, in that second reading phase, that's when they're all in the House of Commons arguing and behaving like children. But Hansard, everything they say is written down. And since 1992, judges have been able to use Hansard where the words of an act are ambiguous. So the case of Pepper and Hart said in 1992 that judges can use Hansard to help them interpret the meaning of words if those words are ambiguous. And it needs to be a clear statement by a minister who introduces the law. But again, what is a clear statement? And then just finally, the Human Rights Act I mentioned just a little bit earlier. There's a case to talk about this, case of Medoza. So the issue in Medoza was, were same-sex partners counted as being able to take over a tenancy like husband and wife? So the Court of Appeal said the words should be living with as if his wife or husband. So in other words, what they're basically saying is that yes, same-sex partners can take over a tenancy like husband and wife. So the UK must follow Article 8 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which is the right to a family life. And then just finally, the impact of EU law. We are no longer part of the EU. So most European countries interpret legislation using the purposive approach. Even though we've left the EU, judges, I think, are going to carry on using the purposive approach. So there's not an EU law that says we have to use it. It's just EU countries like to use it.